Have you ever fallen in love with someone you knew you couldn't have? What would you do if the person helping you heal your heart became the very reason it started racing again? Can love bloom in the most forbidden places, or are some boundaries meant to never be crossed? I never thought I'd be the type of person to fall for their therapist. Hell, I never thought I'd be the type of person who needed therapy in the first place. But there I was, sitting in that beige waiting room, my palms sweating as I waited for my first appointment with Dr. Sarah Mitchell. My life had crumbled 6 months earlier. My marriage of 8 years had ended in the most devastating way possible. I'd caught my wife cheating with my best friend. The betrayal cut so deep that I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. My sister practically dragged me to Dr. Mitchell's office, insisting that professional help was the only thing that could pull me out of the darkness. When Sarah first opened that door and smiled at me, something shifted in my chest. She had these warm brown eyes that seemed to see right through all my walls. And her voice had this gentle quality that made me feel safe for the first time in months. She was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't just her looks that drew me in. It was the way she listened, really listened, like every word I said mattered. Our sessions became the highlight of my week. I found myself counting down the days until I could sit across from her again, sharing my deepest fears and insecurities. She helped me understand that my ex-wife's betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth, that I deserved love and respect. Slowly, the pieces of my shattered self-esteem began to reassemble. But somewhere along the way, something dangerous started happening. I began looking forward to our appointments for all the wrong reasons. I'd spend extra time getting ready, choosing my clothes carefully, hoping she'd notice. I'd catch myself staring at her lips when she spoke, wondering what it would feel like to kiss them. I tried to push these feelings down, telling myself it was just transference, a normal part of therapy where patients develop feelings for their therapist. Sarah had even explained this phenomenon to me early in our sessions, warning me it might happen. But knowing the clinical term for what I was experiencing didn't make the emotions any less real or intense. The turning point came during our 4th month of sessions. I'd been having a particularly difficult week, struggling with loneliness and self-doubt. As I broke down in her office, tears streaming down my face, Sarah did something she'd never done before. She reached across the space between us and gently touched my hand. The moment our skin made contact, electricity shot through my entire body. I looked up at her, and for just a second, I saw something in her eyes that mirrored my own feelings. It was gone in an instant, replaced by her professional composure, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed that moment over and over, analyzing every micro-expression, every subtle shift in her body language. Had she felt it too? Was there something real between us? Or was I deluding myself, seeing what I wanted to see in someone who was just doing her job? The next few sessions were torture. I became hyper-aware of every interaction, every glance, every word. When she asked how I was feeling, I wanted to tell her the truth, that I was falling in love with her, that she'd become the center of my universe. Instead, I gave her the sanitized version, talking about my general progress and healing. I started researching the ethics of therapist-patient relationships, desperately looking for some loophole, some way that what I was feeling could be acceptable. Everything I read told me the same thing. It was forbidden, unethical, potentially harmful. Therapists could lose their licenses for crossing those boundaries, and patients like me were considered vulnerable, unable to give true consent in such an unequal power dynamic. But my heart didn't care about ethics or power dynamics. It only knew that Sarah made me feel alive again, that she'd pulled me out of my darkest hour and shown me I was worthy of love. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman healing my broken heart was breaking it all over again just by being unavailable. I began to notice small things about Sarah that made me wonder if she was struggling with the same internal conflict. Sometimes she'd hold eye contact a beat too long, or her professional facade would slip just slightly when she smiled at me. Once, I caught her looking at my mouth while I was talking, and the air in the room became thick with unspoken tension. The dam finally broke during what would become our last session. I'd been talking about my progress, how much stronger I felt, when Sarah interrupted me with something unexpected. She said she'd been thinking about terminating our therapeutic relationship because she felt I'd made significant progress and might benefit from a different approach. Something in her voice, a slight tremor, a hesitation, told me this wasn't the whole truth. Before I could stop myself, the words tumbled out. Is this really about my progress, or is this about something else? The question hung in the air between us like a live wire. Sarah's composure cracked, her cheeks flushed, and she looked down at her hands. When she finally met my eyes again, I saw a vulnerability there that took my breath away. I think, she said softly, we both know this has become complicated in ways that aren't healthy for either of us. My heart hammered against my ribs. She'd admitted it. There was something between us, but instead of feeling victorious, I felt a crushing sadness, because admitting it meant it had to end. She was right. She was being professional, protecting both of us from a situation that could only end in damage. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Sarah spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. You should know that you've changed my life too. Watching you heal, seeing your strength, it's reminded me why I became a therapist in the first place, but it's also made me question everything I thought I knew about professional boundaries and personal connections. Tears were streaming down both our faces now. She continued, I care about you more than I should, more than is appropriate, and that's exactly why we can't continue like this. I won't be the therapist who takes advantage of a patient's vulnerability, no matter what I might feel. In that moment, I realized something profound. Sarah's refusal to cross that line wasn't a rejection. It was the ultimate act of love. She was protecting me, protecting us, even when it hurt. She was showing me what real love looked like, putting the other person's well-being above your own desires. I left her office that day, knowing I'd never see her again as my therapist. We shook hands at the door, both of us knowing it was really a goodbye. Her touch lingered longer than it should have, and she whispered, take care of yourself. You deserve everything good this world has to offer. 6 months passed. I threw myself into healing the right way, through self-reflection, new friendships, and eventually, dating again. I thought about Sarah often, but the sharp pain of loss had softened into something resembling gratitude. She'd given me the greatest gift possible. She'd shown me I was worthy of love while having the strength to love me appropriately. Then one random Tuesday evening, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, I heard a familiar voice, but it wasn't Sarah. It was her colleague, Dr. Martinez, whom I'd met briefly once when Sarah was out sick. I hope you don't mind me calling, she said. Sarah gave me your number for emergencies only, but I felt you should know. Sarah's been in a car accident. She's in the hospital and she's been asking for you. My world tilted. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and rushed to the hospital. Nothing else mattered except getting to her. When I arrived at her room, I found her awake but bruised, with a cast on her left arm and bandages on her forehead. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. You came, she whispered. I sat beside her bed, taking her uninjured hand in mine. Of course I came. Are you okay? What happened? She told me about the accident. A drunk driver had run a red light and hit her car. She'd been unconscious for several hours, and when she woke up, I was the first person she'd asked for. I know it's not appropriate, she said, but in that moment when I thought I might die, you were who I wanted to see. We talked through the night. She told me she'd been struggling since our last session, questioning whether she'd made the right choice. She'd even considered leaving therapy altogether because she couldn't shake the connection she felt with me. I told her about my own journey, how her strength in maintaining boundaries had actually taught me what healthy love looked like. As dawn broke through her hospital window, something shifted between us. The patient-therapist dynamic that had once defined us was finally, truly over. Sarah was no longer my therapist, and I was no longer her patient. We were just two people who'd found something real in the most unexpected place. "When I get out of here," she said, squeezing my hand, "would you like to have dinner? Not as therapist and patient, but as ourselves." I felt a smile spread across my face for the first time in months. I'd love nothing more. That was 3 years ago. Sarah and I have been together ever since, and she's now my wife. We had to work through the complexity of our unconventional beginning, but we did it together, with complete honesty and the help of couples counseling with a different therapist. People sometimes ask us if we ever regret how we met, if the origin of our relationship makes it complicated. The truth is, I'm grateful for every step of our journey, even the painful parts. Sarah taught me that real love isn't about crossing boundaries. It's about respecting them until the time is right to redefine them together. She saved my life twice. Once as my therapist, helping me heal from betrayal and rebuild my self-worth. And once as the woman who showed me that love worth having is love worth waiting for. Sometimes the best love stories aren't about passion overcoming all obstacles. They're about wisdom, patience, and doing the right thing, even when it breaks your heart. Our wedding day was small and intimate, attended only by our closest friends and family. When Sarah walked down the aisle toward me, I thought about that scared, broken man who'd first sat in her waiting room. I thought about the journey we'd both taken to get to that moment, the boundaries we'd respected, and the love we'd built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine care. As we exchanged vows, Sarah looked into my eyes and said something that brought tears to everyone present. "You taught me that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about becoming strong enough to love and be loved in return. Thank you for showing me that the heart can hold both professional duty and personal truth, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to wait." I still think about that moment in her office when she first touched my hand, the electricity that passed between us, and the strength it took for both of us to honor the boundaries that protected us until we could love each other freely. It wasn't the typical love story, but it was ours, and it was real. And if you're struggling with impossible feelings or forbidden attraction, remember this: real love respects boundaries, even when it hurts. Sometimes the person who truly loves you is the one who says no when saying yes would be easier. And sometimes, if you're patient and if it's meant to be, love finds a way to exist within the proper boundaries of respect, ethics, and mutual care. Today, Sarah still practices therapy, and I've built a successful business helping other people rebuild after life's devastating moments. We both learned that healing isn't a destination. It's a journey we take together, supporting each other while maintaining the healthy boundaries that make love sustainable. The scared, broken person who first walked into Sarah's office would never have believed this ending was possible. But love has a way of surprising us, teaching us that the most beautiful relationships aren't built on passion alone. They're built on respect, patience, and the courage to do what's right even when your heart is breaking. If this story resonated with you and you want to hear more real-life stories about love, healing, and the unexpected ways life can surprise us, make sure to subscribe to Top Life Stories. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss the incredible true stories that remind us we're all more resilient than we think.